Tonight, a retail crime crackdown. A dedicated police task force is set up to tackle shoplifters, one of the fastest growing problems in Glasgow and Edinburgh.
3 or more Harris tweed jackets, that's £1,200 worth of product, and running out the door.
Also making the headlines, measles infections are on the rise. Parents are urged to get their kids vaccinated as cases of the virus surge. In sport, Brendan Rodgers fires back at Rangers manager Barry Ferguson, insisting Václav Černy's celebrations were disrespectful.
I think it's a lack of respect if a player runs up a touchline and he's squirting a water bottle in supporter's face.
And not just for Christmas, Aled Jones prepares to tour Scotland this Easter. I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Shoplifting is one of the fastest growing crimes in Scotland, with Glasgow and Edinburgh worst affected when it comes to reported incidents. Now, a dedicated police task force is being set up to tackle it, backed with £3 million of Scottish Government funding. A specialist team of officers and detectives will operate within the most targeted areas to help reduce shoplifting and attacks on retail workers. Vanessa Kennedy reports.
Scenes like these have increased dramatically across the country in the last few years. Victor says these popular items are among some of the most common things being stolen from this shop in the capital, amounting to thousands of pounds worth of losses.
Harris tweed handbags, tweed jackets and cashmere scarves are the preferred items of thieves. We've had people running into the store, running out the store with 3 or more Harris tweed jackets, that's £1,200 worth of product, and running out the door. They've
spent more than £45,000 installing security measures to try to deter thieves. Retail crime has now risen to above pre-COVID levels across Scotland, particularly in the Central Belt. Last year, there were around 42,000 reported incidents of shoplifting, and of those, 14,000 were in Glasgow and Edinburgh alone. Now the Scottish Government has invested £3 million to help police set up a special task force. It will see 14 uniformed officers and detectives, as well as 4 civilian staff working to prevent and protect against this kind of crime.
We will be targeting repeat offenders, so shoplifting is one of those categories where a large number of the offences are committed by a very small number of people. So those are the people we'll be targeting and the organised elements of that. But we're also looking at a strong prevention element. So how do we, particularly with children and young people, encourage them not to get involved in this? How do we give them a different approach and deal with the vulnerabilities that lead to offending behaviour?
The team will also provide protection methods for shop workers, training them on how best to secure their stores. Many retailers say the measures are well needed in Scotland.
Our actual losses increased 26% last year. So that's massive compared to what it was the year before. When retail crime is on the rise, I mean, sometimes the stores will close due to losing too much of their stock. So yes, it's a big impact on the retailers, and it's worrying.
We've been having discussions with Police Scotland and all the retailers for the last 18 odd months since I've been in my role. So trying to look at ways how we can collectively all work together to try and tackle this problem.
The hope now is that allocating more officers to tackle retail crime will mean preventing it occurring in the first place. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News, Edinburgh.
Health workers are warning the number of children getting measles in Scotland is on the rise, with 22 cases being confirmed in the last 3 months. That's almost as many as the total number for the whole of last year. New figures also show there's been a decrease in the uptake of the MMR JAG. Hannah Carmichael has more.
And 1, 2, 3. All done.
This vaccination clinic in Glasgow is giving preschool children their booster shots for measles, mumps and rubella. Parents say they didn't think twice about getting their little ones booked in.
I think it's really important in terms of really fighting with the disease, and it's also important because she started nursery, so there are other children who can get affected as well.
I don't understand why people don't get their vaccines, to be honest, and measles is such a horrible thing to get, so That's why I want to protect both my kids.
I think the vaccine is good for health. I have 3 kids, and all vaccine in time.
But new Public Health Scotland figures show there's been a steady decline in the number of children receiving the MMR vaccine over the last few years. The first dose is offered to kids between the ages of 12 and 13 months. Last year, 92.8% had received it by 24 months old. This rose to 95.1% by age 5. Compared to 2020's figures, that's a drop of 2.1% and 1.4%.
Public health monitoring is happening, especially in Scotland, in UK and various other countries. There is absolutely no evidence to suggest that taking vaccination will impact health. Otherwise, our public health data that's collated in a very clear manner with evidence-based approach would show something. Given that it doesn't show, there is no need to fear.
In Scotland, there's been 22 confirmed cases of measles in the first 3 months of this year alone. It means we're just 2 cases off matching last year's total figure of 24. Public Health Scotland says it's carefully monitoring the situation, that the vaccine is safe and effective and is the best way to prevent the highly infectious disease. Hannah Carmichael, STV News, Glasgow.
A cargo ship which sailed from Grangemouth then collided with an oil tanker off the Yorkshire coast is back in Scottish waters. The Solong was towed into Aberdeen for further inspection today. One crew member is still missing, presumed dead. Its captain has been charged over the incident. But the ship's arrival this morning has raised concerns about any possible environmental impact after plastic pellets washed up on beaches near to where the collision happened. Stephen Brown has more.
In the Aberdeen morning sunrise, the charred remains of the Solong slowly made its way to the city's South Harbour. The vessel towed from East Yorkshire in the past few days after its collision with an oil tanker earlier this month. It's been brought to the city for safe berthing after a salvage operation started at sea. Now that the Solong has arrived in the city, it will undergo inspection from specialist marine assessors and insurers to see the full extent of the damage. It's unclear at the moment, though, how long it will remain in the city. On the 10th of March, the Solong collided with the US oil tanker the Stena Immaculate off the East Yorkshire coast. 36 crew were rescued. 1 is still missing, presumed dead. The captain of the Solong, a Russian national, has been charged with gross negligence manslaughter. The salvage of the 2 vessels has been ongoing, and experts say the Solong will now undergo much further examinations.
They'll be looking to see if and when that vessel can be returned to service, remove all the cargo, potentially remove all the fuel, and then there should be what we call a dead tow taken to a convenient dry dock or somewhere lay-by berth where she could be properly assessed to determine that structural integrity and what damage has occurred, whether or not the vessel can actually be returned to service safely.
But beyond that, there have been environmental concerns. Plastic pellets have washed up on beaches near where the crash happened, with a clean-up operation now underway.
They can cause issues with seabirds, particularly if they're ingested, and as they break down, they can be injected into the whole kind of range of wildlife, the marine wildlife, and can cause a range of impacts. They can cause, they're kind of potentially toxic, so the birds can affect their health and their capacity to breed.
In Aberdeen, there are fears about any possible environmental impact that could be caused.
There is a huge worry. The potential harm is deeply concerning. These things happen, but we have to have solutions in place that can be activated to just try and manage the problem and minimise the potential damage.
It's unclear how long the Solong will remain in Aberdeen. Inspections and investigations, though, could take some time.
And Stephen joins us now from Aberdeen Harbour. So Stephen, perhaps some reassurances tonight over the environmental impact?
Yes, the Port of Aberdeen say that they have been advised that those plastic pellets that have washed up on the beaches around Norfolk, that they entered the water at the time of the collision, and they say that observations over the past couple of weeks would suggest that there's been no new pollution. They also say that the containers on the ship are secure. But I think it's important to remember that while we've been speaking about the possible environmental impacts of the past couple of days, one crew member remains missing, presumed dead. The captain of the Solong, that Russian national, has been charged, and he's due to appear in court in January.
Stephen in Aberdeen, thank you. Scottish badminton player Kirsty Gilmour says she's happy her yellow card for disrupting play after getting her period has been cancelled and hopes it can be a catalyst for change. It follows an STV News report in which the two-time Commonwealth silver medalist called for the rules to be looked at after she was penalised during her match at the All England Open. She had unexpectedly started her period and asked for a bathroom break. The Badminton World Federation said the rules were applied incorrectly by match officials and there is no need for new regulations.
I would just like there to be some sort of protocol in place to ensure that athletes with periods are treated with some sort of dignity and leniency, because it's such a tough thing to manage and perform at a world-class level at the same time.
Tens of thousands of council workers have voted overwhelmingly in favour of strike action over pay. Unison Scotland's local government committee will meet to discuss balloting members after the employer organisation COSLA offered a 3% pay rise. The union says inflation and council tax hikes make it a pay cut. COSLA states its offer remains on the table and that it is fully utilising the available funding. A Scot living in Thailand was forced to evacuate after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake shook his apartment building in Bangkok. Alec McGregor was working from home when he felt the tremors around 1:30 p.m. local time. The earthquake struck Myanmar this morning, where a state of emergency has now been declared and at least 144 people are dead.
I kind of felt a little bit vertigo, like that vertigo, slightly dizzy feeling. And I thought, okay, is this me or is this something happening here? And I actually sat down for 2 minutes while this was going on. So I was sitting down and then I got back up and then I looked over to the building next to me and they have a pool at the top of the building and the water was flowing over the side of the building. So at that point I knew it was like an earthquake. Yeah, it was quite dramatic. You don't see that. Like that doesn't happen very often, right? When you see a pool emptying like that, and your first thought is for the safety of the people like up there.
Scottish water workers are striking over pay after talks broke down between unions and management. Trade union members rallied at Govan's sewage works demanding a better pay deal. Previous strikes were postponed over 2 consecutive weekends to give room for negotiations. Scottish Water says the offer of 3.4% is fair and progressive.
Scottish Water so far have been unable to bring a proposal to the table that's been suitable for our members. In fact, our members have rejected the offer that they have just now on 3 separate occasions, only for Scottish Water to come back, rehash the same offer again and put it back out to our members.
The owner of 10 old Glasgow subway carriages says he feels complete depression after graffiti artists targeted them. Joe Mulholland bought the iconic carriages with hopes of transforming them into studio spaces and part of a restaurant in Finnieston. But the Hidden Lane owner says he now faces a hefty bill to get them cleaned up after graffiti artists spray painted them. Police say inquiries are ongoing.
It was complete depression. I really felt, what was the point of doing all this if there were going to be vandals come in and waste what is a wonderful idea. They'd been here a week and suddenly the graffiti artists came in and disfigured all of them. We've got a big job now trying to clean them up. It's going to cost a fortune just in materials and hard labour. Probably took pictures of themselves at it and so on, and that this makes them heroes in their own minds. So they're not heroes in mine.
An ultramarathon runner from Glasgow is preparing for the world's toughest race with long runs on the River Clyde. Scott Murdoch is taking on the Marathon des Sables next week to raise money for the children of alcoholics. The race covers the length of 6 marathons, all in temperatures reaching 50 degrees Celsius. As preparations ramp up, we sent Raheem Cham along with Scott in one of his training runs.
It is the toughest race on Earth. 6 days of running through the Sahara Desert, covering 160 miles, while carrying your own food and kit. And a Glasgow Ultramarathon runner is preparing for all that on the Clyde side.
Preparation, it's been no joke. The Marathon des Sables is one of the only races that require death and repatriation insurance. So I've been preparing in a number of ways. I've got a sports science team that I'm working with. And we've been working in heat chambers. We've been doing numerous tests on my VO2 max to really inform the training for the desert.
Scott's raising money for children of alcoholics, a cause he says that's close to his heart.
One of the positive consequences of growing up with an alcoholic parent is the fact that people are more resilient. So I decided to choose an event that requires extreme resilience to raise awareness for the cause.
Scott ran 22 ultramarathons last year and does about 100 miles a week on a regular, but nothing will prepare him for the terrain and weather of the Sahara Desert.
Yeah, so I'm under no illusion that I'm going to suffer really badly for a good few days, but you don't get to the start line of a race like this unless you're a really interesting person with interesting reasons behind what you're doing, and also one of the top athletes in the world. And it's going to be nice scenery, so I'm looking forward to that on a positive note as well.
He heads to Morocco in the first week of April for the race. Raheem Cham, STV News, Glasgow.
Ronnie's here with the sport. We've had the international break and now we're back to all clays and all the rest of it. And you're starting, of course, with the Old Firm.
The Old Firm, John. It's almost, you need to sort of remind yourself that the Old Firm game was actually 2 weeks ago and we're still talking about it. It is dominating the headlines. Václav Černý, Watergate, as it's been dubbed. Today, Brendan Rodgers had his take.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
Good evening. Brendan Rodgers believes that Rangers winger Václav Černý showed a lack of respect with his celebration in the Old Firm derby at Celtic Park. Yesterday we heard Barry Ferguson defending his player, but today Rodgers says he wouldn't want any of his team to ever do the same. Meanwhile, the Parkhead boss revealed he's spoken to owner Dermot Desmond about giving Daisen Maeda a new deal.
It's the controversy that isn't going away. Václav Černý spraying Celtic fans with water, with everyone having an opinion on the matter. Barry Ferguson insists his players did nothing wrong. Today, Brendan Rodgers disagreed.
You can't do that. That's the reality. You know, I understand the jubilation and Rangers players have every right to celebrate with their supporters. You come to Celtic Park like it would be when you go to Ibrox, you win a game of that magnitude, you celebrate, but not in that way. I think it's a lack of respect if a player runs up a touchline and he's squirting a water bottle in supporters' face. I certainly wouldn't want my players to do it.
Elsewhere, after a scintillating season in green and white, Brendan Rodgers hopes to reward Daisen Maeda's form for Celtic with a new contract.
I've spoken with Dermot and the club and spoken with the player and hopefully in the future that is something that can be done. He's been absolutely brilliant for us this season. Wherever he's played, however he's played, he's had an amazing season. So of course you would love to tie up one of your best players.
Bad news on the injury front, however, for the champions, with Rodgers revealing Kasper Schmeichel is out indefinitely after picking up a shoulder injury on international duty for Denmark. Meanwhile at Rangers, as they face a trip to Dundee in the evening kick-off tomorrow, Jack Butland says they must begin building for next season already, and that starts with a strong finish in the Premiership.
Regardless of where we're at domestically or in Europe, these games between the end of the season are an opportunity to give the fans something back, to give the group something to finish the season on a high, and wherever that puts us and takes us. The European games are vitally important, but we still need to finish the season strong. We still need to go into the summer with some real momentum and some real positivity looking forward to next year.
Rocky Bashiri says talks with Hibs have not yet led to a new contract offer, as he admits his future is still up in the air. Meanwhile, after sampling the Celtic Park atmosphere in the stands for the first time, Neil Critchley says Hearts must step up to the challenge when they take on the champions tomorrow. Here's Jamie Bothwick.
He's been a pillar in defence as Hibs have risen up the Premiership table. But with his contract entering its final weeks, Rocky Bushiri is unsure if he'll still be at Easter Road next season.
If I'm honest, I don't know how the future looks like. I've been exchanging with the manager and the club over the last few months, but an official offer hasn't been there yet. It's an important step now, but has to be good for myself, for the club. Everyone needs to find a way to grow.
There is communication going on, as there is with all the players that are out of contract, and right now there's no distractions for what we're trying to do.
While victory over St Johnstone tomorrow would cement Hibs' place in the top 6, Hearts are in a 5-way battle to be in the top half after the split. And they start with a daunting trip to Celtic Park, where the hosts have lost just twice all season.
I went to the Old Firm game. It was a brilliant experience. What a great stadium. It's where you want to go. You want to test yourself against the best, knowing you're going to have to be at your best. And we'll need everyone to step up to the challenge. But when you pull on the maroon jersey, when you play for Hearts, there's some non-negotiables, and we have to go and compete, fight, and be brave in how we want to play the game.
Jamie McCart and Cammy Devlin returned to Critchley's squad for the weekend. Jamie Borthwick, STV Sport.
St Mirren boss Stephen Robinson is calling for a rule change after the SFA admitted Tolosi Olasanya should not have been sent off for a second yellow card against Motherwell. At the moment, cautions can't be reviewed, but the Saints boss says that rule can lead to wrongful red cards. Olasanya is now suspended for tomorrow's clash with Kilmarnock.
You know, they can't review yellow cards, but when it leads to a red and is that blatantly wrong, then it should do, and we're having double punishment for that. Along with other teams, by the way, we're not the only team this has happened to. We're top of the league for decisions against again, but as I say, these second yellow cards, we're not the only team this has happened to. But it's like double punishment, which is incredible. You get your apology, and unfortunately, it doesn't change anything.
This season, it looks as if top six is going to be beyond us, but there's a work to be done. We've got clear messaging to the players. We've got games to win to keep ourselves away from bother and to try and be the best we can be between the end of the season.
Motherwell manager Michael Wimmer is calling on his players to take the confidence from their recent unbeaten spell and use it to lift them towards the top 6. Well, as the Premiership returns, let's take a look at the fixture card in full this weekend. Starting with the Steelmen, they face a trip to Pittodrie to face Jimmy Tillene's Aberdeen. Celtic then welcoming Hearts. Hibs take on St Johnstone in the capital. St Mirren host Kilmarnock. They're all 3 o'clock kickoffs. Then in the evening kickoff, Rangers travel to play Dundee. And on Sunday in Dingwall, it is Ross County versus Dundee United. Finally to rugby, and Edinburgh boss Sean Everett says the focus is purely on performance as they look to bounce back from another disappointing result in the URC and get back into contention for the playoffs. Edinburgh lost to a last-gasp Benetton try in Italy last weekend, a result that saw them slip out of the top 8. With pressure mounting on the team and their coach, they welcome bottom-side Dragons to Hive Stadium tonight.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
That's a lot of sport this weekend, and you can catch up with it on the STV Sport website. John,
where can I get it right?
Good weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Let's get the weather with Sean.
Wet by the coast, with a high chance of sun and splashing. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. I expect there's quite a few of you out there that had a bit of a mini disco today, minus the music and up and down all day, putting the lights on and off. We've had brilliant sunshine 1 minute and then big dark cumulonimbus clouds coming along, bringing us those heavy showers. few hailstones in places as well. Now temperatures tonight, quite chilly by the end of the night across South Lanarkshire, East Ayrshire, 2-3 degrees. Clear spells for most of us, the showers easing away to the northwest. Tomorrow though, dear, not more rain. Yes, unfortunately more rain coming through, probably late morning, early afternoon. That's when the worst of the rain will go through. Quite gusty winds as well, so most of us start the day dry and bright. We'll see some heavy rain for a time and then sunshine and showers later on in the afternoon and into the evening. Temperatures about 9 or 10 degrees. And of course, remember, the clocks spring forward this weekend too. Sunday, a much better day for you. A lot of dry, bright weather. Temperatures 13 or 14 degrees with pressure building. And that is a sign of things to come. Now, the further northwest we are, we'll see quite a bit of cloud coming going into next week, but the temperature's rising. We're getting up to about 14-15 degrees. This is for the likes of Lochaber and Fort William, so doing not too bad. The night time's still about 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. Peak temperatures, I think, though, will be around the likes of Glasgow and North Lanarkshire, where possibly Tuesday and Wednesday, a few spots like Cumbernauld, Motherwell, up to 18 degrees. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
It's been over 40 years since Aled Jones first experienced chart success, and since then the proud Welshman has diversified his skills to also become a TV and radio presenter. However, singing remains his first love, and he spoke to Emma for tonight's What's on Scotland about his latest tour.
Aled, gearing up for the Full Circle Tour, and you are giving us lots of Scottish dates.
Yeah, 9 Scottish dates. This tour I've been doing for about a year now. I've done 75 of the dates so far. This tour is a lot more intimate. It's just me on stage telling my story. I kind of describe the first half as bad hair and bad clothes because we're firmly in the 70s and the 80s. The second half is my life up to now, so everything from Strictly to Masked Singer to, you know, all the stuff I do now.
We're walking in the air, we're dancing in the midnight sky.
Would little Aled ever believe it? Big Aled would be here today, still making music, still
No, not
out there
really.
performing?
No, and I thank my lucky stars, you know, that I am doing it. Monday to Friday, I was just a normal school kid, and then keeping stum about this other life I had. And then Friday afternoon, I'd be on the train to London and meeting my pop heroes, or, you know, singing at Bob Geldof and Paula Yates's wedding or something mad like that, you know.
I cannot believe you sang at their wedding.
I know, neither can I, really.
It's proper pinch me stuff, isn't it?
Well, the photo, the iconic photo of Bob and Paula, and Paula's in the big red dress, and, you know, then you see George Michael, Simon Le Bon, Tony Hadley, Midge Ure, and me hanging out with David Bowie. But at the time, I was more excited about Spandau Ballet. I was an 80s kid, you know.
Yeah.
And you can see more of Aled on What's on Scotland, half an hour, with Grado as well. That's quite the combination. From all of us here, thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. Good night.